my team and I will keep fighting for you and your families. My office is ready to help with any issues with the federal government. In our first year, we helped hundreds of Ions with Social Security payments, passports, Medicare, and honoring our military heroes. If you or someone you know needs help dealing with the federal government, contact my office at 202 225 4426. You can also visit us online at feenstra.house.gov. I'm Congressman Randy Feenstra, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Paid for by official funds, authorized by the House of Representatives.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. I have 60 rounds of freedom with me at all times. And welcome to the program once again. And it's always a pleasure to talk with Fort Dodge City Manager David Furyk. How are you, David?
Great, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, I guess. Yeah, I haven't. I'm still casting a shadow.
You're still.
That's all good. I turned 70 over the weekend. So
I know. Happy belated birthday. I saw that on Facebook.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've
how's it feel to be 70?
Well, no differently, I guess. I know I can't run very fast. In fact, I can't run at all. The only, the birthday that bothered me, and I've talked with women about this, the birthday that bothered me was 40.
Really?
50 and 60 went by like nothing. And I did pause when I turned 70. But I spent about 3 weeks in grief over my 40th birthday.
Over your 40th?
Well, I just didn't think I had an idea when I was 20 where I should be in life at 40, and I wasn't there. So I struggle with that quite a bit. And I've talked to women who say that their date is 30. A lot of women say that. I don't know. Did you struggle with 40, or haven't you turned 40 yet?
Yeah, I wish. No, actually, I can't say I had this similar experience at 40 because I'd been working here about 2 years by the time I was 40, and because this is kind of where I wanted to be professionally.
Right,
I'm still here, so
right.
I was pretty stoked professionally where I was at age 40. I had 4 kids. My youngest was, he's still pretty little at the time. He was probably just a couple years old because I think he was born. I was 37, halfway through 37. So yeah, I still felt young, and was pretty active. So 40 didn't bug me. The one thing I remember telling somebody when I turned 40 is like, wow, the only thing that kind of scares me is the decade between 30 and 40 went really fast. And of course, this person was over 50. He goes, just wait, it gets faster. And I guess
it really does.
It kind of does. When I turned 50, which was just a couple years ago, it didn't seem to bother me because I had this mentality of, okay, you can't deny you're old at 50. You are old.
You're getting older.
You've lived
certainly.
50 years.
I don't think 50 is necessarily old, but you're getting up there.
Yeah. Obviously you're 70
Yeah,
now.
I'm 70 now, so I could have a 50-year-old kid, for God's sake.
I think once you hit, at least my mentality, once I hit 50, is like, okay, you're not denying that you're older. It's all just a state of mind at that point. It's how healthy you feel, how, it's just a number. Really, it's where you're at, more how you feel in life. Now that was, I guess, a fine thought to have. And then what had happened during my 50th year? Well, I ended up with COVID, then I ended up in a hospital after a bike accident. So my 50th year.
I remember that. Wow.
My 50th, and I had to go to the emergency room twice for 2 other minor injuries. So my 50th year was about my toughest revolution around the sun.
Sure. How long ago was that bike accident?
That was in May.
Well, it was just last May.
Just last May, yeah.
Well, if you're past 50 and you have a bike accident, it hurts longer.
It did. It did. So
there's just no way of getting around that.
So no, well, happy birthday, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
You're looking good for 70.
Yeah, I feel good.
And my birthday's in July. So
I had a really nice compliment. I went to the doctor's office down in Ames the other day.
Well, that's good to get a compliment in the doctor's office.
Well, a young nurse, she's a very young woman, was taking me through the steps, vital signs, and all that. And she said, she looked at my chart and said, "You're going to be 70 this weekend." And I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Gosh, I wouldn't have thought you were more than 54.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That is a compliment.
Yeah. Oh, it is a compliment. And when I was a younger man, and I'd be seen in a restaurant or something with my mom, A lot of people thought we were brother and sister. I look
Oh.
like her more then.
Okay.
I look more like my dad now in my older years. But yeah, he a lot of. So I guess those good genes run in the family. She certainly. Of course, she's about 90 now, so
That's good.
it's good. She doesn't look. Nobody mistakes her for my sister.
Well, having those longevity genes is good.
Yeah, where's she 89? I don't remember, 89 or 90. Anyway, David Fieke is the city manager, and we're going to have to talk about the budget, certainly. But before we get there, I understand the good news is that Starbucks is coming to the old Pizza Hut restaurant building out on Highway 20.
Yes. It's my understanding they're actually going to take that building down and redo and build.
I heard that, yeah,
and build a new redo the whole site. So.
Mhm.
So yeah, that'll be cool. I know I've heard some grouches like, why do we need another Starbucks? Like, well, one is we don't, we're not
What kind of question is that?
we're not a totalitarian regime. We
Yeah,
don't,
really.
we don't control how people want to invest. We do control a little bit how people want to invest their money, but we can't tell them yes or no. I mean, yeah, we have some zoning rules and site plan rules, but if somebody wants to invest in a third Starbucks in town, God bless them, and they can go ahead.
Yeah,
and do
terrific.
It. Yeah.
I mean, what kind of question is that?
I don't
Oh,
know.
we have too many car dealerships or furniture stores or radio stations or anything, convenience stores. Well, there is one thing we have too many of them. I mean, if somebody wants to bring a business to town or they're in town, better yet, and they start a business, more power to them.
Yeah.
I don't get that whole or. I think it's just those are cavemen, citizens against virtually everything.
Yeah.
That's who those folks are.
Well, it is surprising that it's taken us this long to get a Starbucks drive-through, because obviously the drive-through coffee is super popular between
it is
the Dunkins, the Scooters, the other places. Well, I mean, even the
Dunkins has always got something.
Yeah,
going
the place the downtown's got a drive-up. I mean, drive-up is what people want. They want it. So,
I guess so.
So I think the Starbucks should do well with a drive-up.
There's little cultural changes every now and then. Morning radio, a lot of morning radio shows start at 5 a.m. now. 6 a.m. was the traditional time.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, people started getting up early. Not me.
Yeah. Well, you used to do this morning, didn't you?
I did the morning show for years, and my other jobs. I've always had, due to my job, no matter what it was, whether I was a road construction worker that drove trucks, big trucks, tractor trailer type trucks, or whatever, I always had to get up way early in the morning. In the service, I had to do the same thing. I don't know why that was, but just the way life happened, I guess. I never had a 9-to-5 job. What time do you get in the office in the morning there, David? 8 o'clock?
Yeah, a little before 8
Okay.
usually.
All right. Anyway, Warden Plaza is up for sale now. The way that worked out, KDG, the company that's been sitting on it for a while, we took it back from KDG.
We do not have it back. They still
we do not.
They have it.
Did we ever have it back?
We have not had it back since. I mean, we had litigation with them that got resolved, but we don't. We haven't. We basically gave it to them years ago when their development plans were proceeding, where they needed to be in the ownership chain to work on getting their financials. So they still have it. In fact, they have it listed. The city does not have it listed. The
city, or excuse me,
the company.
Company has it. Okay,
has it listed with CBRE. We've talked to their listing agent, and he's excited about the project. He's had some leads already, so we'll see how that goes. So
KDG then expects to make a profit off the sale of the ward. Now, I don't think they deserve a profit.
Well, I don't know what they expect to make. They're not talking to us, so I can't.
And haven't since they've had the property. I don't think.
So what they're expecting to make on our part is just an assumption. I can tell you that when we owned it, or the city owned it, the city was not looking to make any money off the sale of the building.
Right.
I don't think that the building, if anything, has a very low value because of the amount of work that has to go in it to make it usable. I mean, and so I don't know what their plans are. I haven't gotten a number of what the asking price
Obviously, development of the property isn't something KDG has on their mind.
Not anymore.
And you mentioned a legal problem between the city and KDG. What was that problem that's been straightened out?
Well, actually, yeah, they were the plaintiffs. They sued the city saying that we breached contract because we told the state at one point that they hadn't proceeded on any plans, which they hadn't. What we told the state was factual.
Oh, that's always good.
And they said that because of what we would share information we shared with them, that prohibited them from getting the state grants they needed to proceed with the project, which was completely untrue. And we had state people deposed that said no, they have ample opportunity to reapply for the grants that they had let lapse because they took too long. So they sued us for that. It was basically dismissed in summary judgment. They appealed. They tried to negotiate a settlement with us, and we said no, so they just dropped the appeal. So it's
I wonder what their appeal was based on. Do you have any idea? It didn't seem to me, as somebody who's not.
I didn't read like what their appeal verbiage was. Mark Crimmins was handling
Crimmins
it.
would do that,
and he said they're appealing. I rolled my eyes, and then we said, okay, let's see what happens here. So, city's willing to work with. I mean, it's a wonderful building. I know it looks like hell right now, but
it's looked like hell for many years.
You look at the architecture that's still there. Yes, the windows are all going to need to be replaced anyways, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
And what kind of damage have we had to the interior because the windows are out?
Which doesn't matter because you're going to gut the thing back to concrete. I mean, you're starting with a building that basically is a concrete shell and skeleton on the inside, and you go from there. I mean, there's nothing interior that's salvageable. There's nothing. I mean, everything's starting over. So basically, you start over with you got your brick and concrete. I mean, and everything else is just going to come out.
Yeah. So if a company or a person or whatever decided to buy the Warden Plaza, would the city then give some sort of incentives, whether it be a tax abatement or any incentives for a buyer who comes to town and says, okay, I want to do something, but a private company doing business in a city like Fort Dodge, they're going to want something from the city. They always do.
Yeah, and we would. I mean, for KDG, we were willing to offer a combination of tax abatement and tax increment financing. So basically, the building you wouldn't be paying taxes on for 20 years. So that just to help, so they could put that back into the redevelopment, because it's going to take that. Because it's worth mentioning that the redevelopment price for the Warden, and this is prior to COVID, before prices went up, was about $30 million. And for the amount of units you can get out of it, there's only about 10 million of that you can finance privately through a bank that you can then pay off. The rest of it has to be in the form of grants, tax credits, or other things. So basically, you're almost getting 2/3 of the price of the redevelopment from some other source, and that it will be a combination of local and state and federal funds to accomplish that. And the packages are out there; it can be done. It's just going to take somebody to put the effort in and do it.
So is it still $30 million to renovate the place?
I wouldn't know what it would be right now. I mean, these are numbers that were, again, estimates put together several years ago. So, I mean, in general terms, just so people kind of get the kind of the whole scope of the project. It's big. I mean,
By the way, we're on StreamYard today, so go to your computer or cell phone. Not if you're driving, please. Please don't do that if you're driving. But if you go to my Facebook page, which is Michael Devine, or the radio station Facebook page, AM 1400 KBFD, or the Alpha Media or the Fort Dodge Alpha Media website, you will find us there. David and I are on camera, and we're looking, a little thin as far as our hair is concerned. But other than that, I think we look pretty damn good, David. So we didn't have a council meeting last night. We had a budget meeting.
Yeah, we wrapped up our budget meetings. We kind of did a recap of the presentations from all the prior budget workshops. We talked about the general fund in a little more detail, what's being done there, and how we're balancing the general fund, which will be we're programming it at about I think I had about a $14 million general fund budget, and it's projected to be balanced. When we're planning on February 7th for a budget that doesn't start till July 1 and doesn't end till June 30, 2023. So a lot of things happen in those time periods. So it's a tricky job to try to figure out exactly what your revenues are going to be and what your expenditures are going to be. I mean, you know, how much is gas going to cost then, and how is that going to impact it? You know, we have construction projects. How is that going to be impacted? You know, we kind of have a pretty good idea what our labor costs are going to be because a lot of those are fixed in collective bargaining agreements. So, but it's a difficult thing, and revenues. You know, we're going to know what about our tax revenues are going to be, but we don't know what some of the other major revenue sources could be because they could vary based on a whole lot of different factors. So
I mentioned I was down in Ames last Thursday, I think, or Friday. I don't even remember. But anyway, I needed to fill up before I came back to Fort Dodge, fill my car. I have a Toyota Camry. It's not a huge vehicle. But I did notice that diesel was $3.94 a gallon. Oof, That's about double the price. Thank you, Brandon, wherever you are. Yeah, and my the fuel I got was like, well, it was almost $50 to fill the tank on my Toyota Camry.
on a Camry, wow,
on a Camry, yeah,
that's a big ouch.
yeah. Well, I got premium. I was going to go for the unleaded because of the price of gas,
Yeah.
but I must have instinctively pushed the premium button because that's what I usually do.
Okay.
Sorry, ethanol producers, but I usually use the ethanol blend. But yeah, the price of fuel is just through the roof, and you're right to be concerned about what the price of gas might be in a year. There may be punishment for not, I don't know, having a solar-powered vehicle. I have no idea where we're going with this.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Of course, I'm going to ask you about broadband there, David. So broadband continues, and the name of our broadband is
Fort Dodge Fiber.
Ah, great name, great name.
Yeah.
So with Fort Dodge Fiber, we will be able to get online television and all that sort of thing.
So yeah, well, I mean, with Fort Dodge Fiber, we are, our primary purpose is the data package, and we will be offering a real gig, a true gigabyte up and down for $95 a month. So that's, I mean, the people are in Fort Dodge, when they get that, they're going to be blown away by the speed. They're absolutely going to be blown away.
Well, yeah.
It won't feel right how fast things are going to be.
After being used to being a host along with oh my God, look at this gigabytes you're getting, or whatever, megabytes or whatever it is.
Yeah. So
yeah, that'll be great. I know Chip Baltimore, of course, and he is an attorney. He denies it for some reason. He's an attorney for Mediacom, but as a matter of fact, he's actually technically employed by an umbrella group of which Mediacom is part of. But Skip is always fighting us to keep Mediacom, the dominant franchise in Fort Dodge. Is Mediacom still screwing with us? Or I know down in West Des Moines, they sued West Des Moines for not following the correct process. As a matter of fact, Mediacom was right. I hate to say that, but Mediacom was right that West Des Moines did not follow the practice that Fort Dodge did. We had hearings and put it up for a vote, and acting on behalf of those who voted overwhelmingly to get our own broadband, we were able to proceed. West Des Moines didn't take the vote. They just rammed right through it.
Well, and what West Des Moines was planning, and I'll say that I haven't heard in a long time what West Des Moines is doing. What they were planning is they were building a conduit network, and then they were going to contract with a private party for the fiber and then the service. So, I mean, I think Mediacom's argument there was, well, you're not opening it up to everybody. You know, it's where in our case, we're not partnering with a private party. We are building a fully municipal network.
Right.
So we have a different model than West Des Moines has.
Yeah. We have one more like Spencer has.
Yeah, more like Spencer, Algona,
a number of other smaller
other
towns. I don't know if a lot of, like, we don't have a lot of huge cities in Iowa, but I don't know about Waterloo or some of the what we would call bigger towns, what they have.
The model that for a city closest to our size is Cedar Falls Utilities.
Okay.
And Cedar Falls Utilities is kind of the gold standard in municipal telecommunications providers. And Cedar Falls Utilities started as a cable company back in the day. So I guess I guess what I heard, or I think I heard, is that Cedar, when cable was first coming on, that the city of Cedar Falls did a municipal utility at that point and didn't have a private company come in to do cable.
Mm-hmm.
And so as technology has evolved, they've evolved and built a full fiber system and continue with providing. They provide voice, data, and video services over a fiber network right now, and they're doing amazing stuff.
All right. So this will
Yeah.
include phone, then, won't it? For
So,
those who
excuse me. So what our package will be, if somebody wants phone, they can get phone through us. There'll be an additional charge of like $20. I think it was to have phone in addition to the data.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants video services, we're going to offer a variety of streaming video services so people can pick and choose what they want. Because I mean, right now, even through Mediacom, or I'm assuming through Frontier too, or any sort of broadband provider, there are a number of streaming video services out there. Hulu, Netflix, Apple TV, or not Apple TV, Disney, YouTube TV. There are all these
ESPN Plus, bring it up.
a Sling. There are these streaming video services where now that the speeds are getting there, so you can get your video through that. So we're, in lieu of us investing into just one video service, we're going to give the customers an option to pick whatever video service fits what their preferences are as far as channels and what they like watching.
All right. By the way, I should have asked this earlier, but if anybody has a question or comment for the city manager, David Furyk, it's 955-1400, 955-1400 if you do. So back to the budget for a little bit. When do we anticipate having the budget finalized?
Budget will be finalized at the last meeting in March, which I think is the 28th is the fourth Monday. So we're everything up until that point is really just informal discussions. And we're done with that now. So the 14th, which is the next week's meeting, we set the public hearing. So we'll set the public hearing for our budgets, and we have to have a public hearing for our tax levy. So we start that process formally next council meeting. And then, at the end of February is, I think, when we have the hearing on our budget and on our levy, and then it goes forward from there. And then the council finally has to approve it by the end of March.
Now, this might be a difficult question to ask, but I remember a former ranking city employee when we were discussing flooding out in the Crossroads area. This has been several years ago,
It'd have to be, yeah.
Yeah, it was several years ago. But he said, years ago, we did have money allotted to take care of this flooding problem. But every time we got to a budget meeting, city council members scraped away some of the money from the budget, the larger budget, for projects in their particular ward. Can councilmen still do that or not?
No, a council member really has no authority as an individual. The council members don't have any. They can't make a decision unilaterally that affects the city.
Okay.
They only make. Can provide direction and directive and policy or executive leadership as a group.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I guess it's a little bit of a misrepresentation to say a council member individually directed money to their ward.
Well, this would have been several years ago. I mean, probably when you were a teenager.
Yeah. Now, under the commission form, I don't know, because I don't remember. I don't know enough how that was structured to know if an individual commissioner, what their spending authority was. But under this structure's authority, since as long as I've been here, and even prior to that, I don't think individual council members had any spending authority. Now, as a group, they could have agreed to, okay, this amount of money goes to this ward, this amount of money goes to this ward, this amount of money goes to that ward, and they would have to make that decision as a group. To the assertion that money that was set aside for stormwater wasn't used for stormwater, I just don't know. I mean, when I came here, there wasn't money set aside to do stormwater work. There was small amounts of stormwater work done in association with street projects that were most likely paid through road use tax. The first true stormwater project that that we're aware of major in any period of time was when we did the Rolling Hills, because that area was flooding badly. Or since I was here, the first project was Rolling Hills, but we established a stormwater utility, was actually approved by the council prior to me getting here, but they hadn't approved a rate. So one of the early things that we did is set aside what the stormwater utility rate was going to be, how much people would pay. And it started out, people were paying about $3 per month per house. It's gone up since then. So that's kind of what it is. And now we have a fund which generates now about $750,000 per year that is dedicated for stormwater projects. And
where does that $750,000 come from?
It comes from
water.
It's on your utility bill.
Okay. All right.
So you can look and see the stormwater utility on the utility bill. And then that money then goes into a special stormwater account. And that allows us to do the large projects out at the mall, the big ponds and the big pipes and all that stuff. And then we usually sell bonds for that and then pay it off over a 10-year period.
Okay. All right. So how long you been city manager? You've been here a long time.
It'll be 16 years.
No kidding.
In October.
I always have to ask you, it's probably not your favorite subject, but your son, of course, went to the University of Iowa to swim. And I see they have that they still have women's field hockey at the University of Iowa, but they can't find any money for the men's swimming game.
I know. I've been to a field hockey game. My son's actually dating a girl on the field hockey team. She's wonderful.
Field hockey is something to do on the East Coast. We don't even do field hockey in the state of Iowa, and I don't know if they do in Illinois or most of the Midwestern states. We got it there for gender equity, apparently, a number of years ago. And most of the field hockey students who play women's field hockey are from the East Coast,
or foreigners.
Yeah, or foreigners, yeah.
And if there's anything wrong with that, I mean, one of the coolest
things there
about...
isn't a thing wrong with it. But if you can find money for women's field hockey, which I don't think has a big audience out here, I've never seen it on television. You can certainly find it for men's swimming, since I think women have diving and other categories within the swimming umbrella.
So there used to be men's swimming and diving. Now there's only women's swimming and diving at the University of Iowa.
Okay.
There's money. There's money the men's swimming and diving team's not that expensive.
Yeah, we gave Kirk Ferentz a raise.
We probably equal to the budget for the men's swimming and diving team. The raise is probably equal to the entire men's swimming and diving budget. What was his raise?
$3 million
per
year.
His raise was $3 million a year.
I believe it was. He was making $4 and he went up to $7.
Oh, that'd probably pay for the swimming and diving team for 2 years.
Yeah,
it'd be hard pressed to say that. I mean, the athletic department gave out numbers that were bogus, but the swimming and diving program doesn't cost more than $1.5 million
every year
per year.
That's it. And some of the administrators make $1 million a year.
Well, yeah, they're important,
I guess. That's just one big gift that keeps on giving down there for Kurt Ferentz and a lot of others. My God, you cannot justify that sort of money for Coach Ferentz or his son who makes $850,000.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kurt Ferentz. I think. I mean, I don't know him personally. Just
I have met him several times. He's a good guy.
I like him, and I kind of like what he's done for the program. What he gets paid. I mean, that's not my call. I don't know how it compares. I know he gets paid a lot more than a lot of other Big Ten coaches, but I guess being here as long as he has, his pay's increased significantly over time.
Yeah, he's going to make as much as Dabo Sweeney out of Clemson. And Clemson, I believe, has won maybe 2 national championships. Yeah. 1 at least, but I think it's been 2 in the recent years.
Really? Well, that's good for Kurt. He had more wins than Dabo Sweeney did last year.
Last year he did.
Now there's some years where Dabo won all the games.
All right, David Ferrick's been our guest. Thank you, David.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD.
Michael Devine.
You're very clever, my charming little friend.
With more stimulating talk radio.
But not clever enough.
238.
This is Sports on Radio Iowa. I'm Tad Kim. 2 teams desperate for a win collide in Morgantown tonight as Iowa State visits West Virginia. The Cyclones are 3-7 in the Big 12, while the Mountaineers are 2-7. ISU coach TJ Otzelberger says his Cyclones need to play with a sense of urgency.
Both teams are, needing a win. we need to be the team that's more desperate and urgent to do that.
The Cyclones have dropped out of the latest AP college basketball poll. The Cyclone women are back in the top 10 this week. They're at number 9 in the AP survey, while the Iowa Hawkeye women fall to number 25 after a 98-90 loss at Michigan. In that game, Caitlin Clark poured in a career-high 46 points. She was named the Big Ten Player of the Week. And the Iowa Cubs have announced Marty Peavy will return for his 10th season as manager of the club.
get the March surprise. I mean,
Girls State
we've
basketball
even been known
tournament.
to get the April surprise.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so you just don't ever know.
No, you don't. I mean, I've seen it snow opening day of baseball season. I've seen, we have that saying here in Iowa, every time the girls' state basketball tournament comes around, we have a bad storm, and that seems to hold true most years. So,
right. Well, it's the cycle, Think about it. It's the second or third week of February that they usually have that tournament, I guess, and it's I don't know when it is right now. I think that some of the states are already in district play, and it's always fascinating to me. When I was a senior in high school, we won the state championship in basketball, and it was that has resonated all of these years because that group of young men is still a very close group of friends, and it's just one of those things you never forget as you have that opportunity.
Sam Clovis is a former national co-chair of the Trump campaign, former Air Force fighter pilot, graduate of the Air Force Academy, talk show host, on and on and on. And he was an instructor for many years as well, business instructor. In other words, this one man, Sam Clovis, has a resume that probably 50 liberals, if they combine their resume, couldn't possibly match. And that's hardly a new thing, by the way. I want to talk with you about when we should start calling the Biden administration racist. The story is out that, and I read this quite a long time ago in a book called Lucky by two New York Times journalists. And lucky refers to how lucky Joe Biden was to get the nomination in the first place.
Right.
The way he got the nomination is he was dead in the water going into the South Carolina primary. He hadn't done well. He was the Democratic base was clamoring for Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, and of course the gangsters who run the Democratic Party couldn't abide that because their Wall Street donors would not fund their campaign. It's funny that these same Wall Street people fund the Democrats and the Republicans, but the Democrats always want to pose the Republicans as evil people who are in charge of big money. My God, they get as much, or if not more, when it comes to national elections as the Republicans ever do. But anyway, the point being, Joe Biden went to talk with Congressman James Clyburn, who is an African-American man, and he's very well respected, not only in Congress, but more importantly, he is very influential in his home state of South Carolina. Joe Biden went to him for assistance. He said, I'm done if I lose here. And Clyburn said, okay, we'll help, and I'll try to get out the black vote for you, which is all important in this state. And we'll bring the Democratic Party along for the ride, of course, in South Carolina. But you have to do one thing. If you're really sincere about helping African Americans, then you must make a gesture. You can't just talk about it as liberals have done for many years. You must appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court when the time comes, because it was already rumored at that time that Stephen Pryor was going to be pressured to step down from the Supreme Court, and he did. So that's why we have this really racial and gender-based pick to the Supreme Court. And the defense of racism in this regard is that white men have gotten the job too many times, so we need to balance the scales. Is that justification in your mind to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court?
No, I think any time that you base your picks on the quota system, which is, let's call it what it is.
It is quota system. Yeah.
And then you are essentially throwing merit out the window. If you, I would, if I were in charge or if I were advising the president, I would say you need to pick the best jurist possible to fill this position. If you are able to find an African American woman that is the equal of any of the others, and is equally qualified, then yes, I think you might make that choice. But it has to be based on merit. It can't be based on a quota, because a quota is the most racist, racial thing that you can do. Because what you are saying is that this person could not have this position unless they were picked by someone to fill this position because they weren't qualified otherwise. That's what you're saying. And there's nothing more racist than that. That's why affirmative action is, and I think if you want to talk about affirmative action as if you have two equally qualified people and you want to increase the diversity on your faculty or on the Supreme Court or on some other place, and you happen to have a person of color and you want to increase the diversity and they're equally qualified, then yes, I would say a good decision would be to hire to increase the diversity. But it has to be based on merit. It can't be based on a quota.
Well, Sam Clovis is our guest. According to the Washington Post and others, some time ago, that math itself is racist. Math is racist. The governor's race in Virginia played a part in this. Virginia Democrats were saying that math is racist and the entire curriculum needed to be overhauled because obviously it was wrong to teach math to students.
How is math racist?
Well,
math is math. Physics is physics. Electrons are electrons. I mean, how does that take on a racial tone?
Well, according to Theodore Kim of the Washington Post, the RSA encryption, the algorithm that runs on your phone to prevent hackers from stealing your credit card numbers, learning the RSA encryption is usually preferred by lessons on Euclid's algorithm and the Chinese remainder theorem. Are you ready for this? I mean, I could go on.
Yep.
We're getting in kind of deep weeds here, but apparently Euclid was racist.
Well, yeah, let's go back 2,000 years, and then all of a sudden Euclid is a racist. Okay.
According to Mr. Kim of the Washington Post, in 1929, a white mathematician, we can't have that. By definition, that's terrible. A white mathematician at the University of Chicago named L.E. Dickinson popularized the English-speaking word and simultaneously stripped away the Chinese author's name of certain math problems. Now, as I say, we're getting way out into the woods here, but there is a rather long, ridiculous explanation to why math is racist. Let's just say it makes no sense at all. I mean, if you're referring to Euclid, you've lost the argument with me already.
Well, it's a little bit like asking the question when this half of a baseball card sold for $425,000 recently, and the question was asked last night on a sports show that I watch nearly every day. How many people know who Honus Wagner is?
Well,
now, the issue is how many people know who Euclid is? How many people know? I mean, really? Now think about it. If you think about now that the exposure that our young people have to math or to physics or to chemistry or to biology or anything that might require perish the thought that they have to be able to solve an algebraic equation, like they might have to do in real life, then you sit there and say, okay, so teaching real life skills like physical science is racist. Now, that is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't care what kind of argument you offer. You cannot rationally come to the conclusion that things that are immutable, like physics, like electrical engineering, like mechanical engineering, like physics, like chemistry, things that are immutable, is racist. How is that possible? But then again,
It's not
of course,
possible.
you probably have to explain the word immutable to people, and that may be racist. The fact that I used the term immutable. Now that may in fact be racist. I don't know.
Oh, it probably is, Sam. You just said it. You're a white guy.
I have got my tongue buried so deep in my cheek that I cannot even begin to tell you. I'm having trouble speaking, as a matter of fact.
That's okay. I want to move on. I'm drawing an example here of the Biden administration's racism. A young man from Rochester, Minnesota, has been sentenced to 10 years in prison. Prosecutors, of course, recommended at least 12, but Biden's Department of Justice insisted on less. A young man from Rochester, Minnesota, named Montez Terry Lee Jr., has pled guilty to arson. Arson. Now, what Mr. Lee did was burn down Max's pawn shop in Minneapolis. When he burned it down, and let's just say that he used rather colorful language in describing what he was going to do, a young man in the building, a 30-year-old man, died in the fire that Mr. Lee set. You might notice when I said that Mr. Lee was only charged with or pleaded guilty to arson. Never mind, a young man died in the fire, and he was sentenced to less time than the prosecutors required. Now, I'm going to make a bet with you, Sam. Mr. Lee, even though he burned down a building, even though he had nothing on his mind other than destruction, and a young man died, Mr. Lee will be out in 3-4 years, maybe. Further, and bear with me, I'm going to try to make this point here again. Further, a judge has sentenced a young man by the name of Michael Lee Wolf from Illinois to 41 months in prison for arson. Bryce Michael Williams to 27 months for conspiracy to commit arson. Garrett Patrick Ziegler of Long Lake, Minnesota. These are little towns. Fernandez Cortez Henderson of Savage, Minnesota. Believe me, that's not a hotbed of radicalism in Savage. Each pleaded guilty to a more serious charge of aiding and abetting arson. She gave Ziegler 5 years mandatory. Also, defendants serving federal time now are Mark Bell Gonzalez and Alexander Steve Heil, who were all sentenced for setting a fire to a Wells Fargo bank on Lake Street in Minnesota. Finally, and at last, Matthew Scott White of Minneapolis is serving a 7-year sentence for burning down an Enterprise car rental office in the name of racial justice. What I'm trying to get at here is that these are serious offenses, first of all, and they're not being sentenced to a lot of time. Trying to burn down a bank in a car rental place. But more importantly, I want to expose once again and remove from our consciousness once and for all that these were not peaceful protesters. These were bad people who came to Minneapolis to do bad things, and they did. And more importantly, they had no real expectation of real punishment. So the idea that this was a peaceful protest, like the 60s protest, the student-led protests of the 1960s, I believe the mayor of Seattle, after an entire block was taken over by masked hoodlums, said that this was the summer of love, a new summer of love in Seattle. I cannot believe they went to such lengths to describe what these people were doing. These were not student intellectuals philosophically opposed to a policy. They were people who came to Minneapolis to burn buildings, and they didn't care if they killed somebody. And at least one of them did. And they've been given relatively light sentences. So again, let's forget this noble warriors peacefully protesting in Minneapolis business. It's not true. It never was, and it never will be. And secondly, and I took some time doing this, excuse me, Sam. Secondly, the Biden administration, through its Department of Justice, is going pretty light on these folks. I mean, a man dies in an arson fire, and all the man charged with, or what he finally pleads guilty to, the man who set the fire, who killed the man, is arson.
Right.
No, where's the murder charge?
Where's the murder charge? Yeah, exactly. Or even manslaughter, even
Anything.
anything associated with taking a life. I mean, that's where do you again, do you not put how do you were these done in front of a judge, or were they jury trials, or
It was a plea deal primarily.
Yeah, well, okay, plea deals, and then then they never go to trial, and then it's just paperwork.
Yeah,
and you do that. I will tell you, it's ironic you bring this up, because I'm doing some research for a client right now, and I'm looking at law enforcement issues, and I'm getting ready to prepare a paper on law enforcement, and so it's looking at the state of Nebraska, and over the last, I think, 10 years, they've had an increase in their prison population of 21%, whereas across the country, that prison population has declined by 11%. And so Nebraska is clearly an outlier when it comes to incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
And so you wonder, again, and the other part is the unevenness. Think about all of these cases that you talked about were arson. All of them were associated with arson. And look at how uneven the penalties were and how light they were. That is the point I think you're making, is how light the penalties are.
The
worst is 10 years, and the guy will be out in 5.5.
Oh, yeah.
And so, or 4. And so you sit, and he took a life. And he took a life. And he'll be out in 4 years.
I just
how
like
does the family of the person who died, how do they feel about the plea deal?
Well, I would just like to point out the difference in these sentences here, where people actually died and property was taken maliciously, to what these guys who stormed the Capitol, so-called stormed the Capitol, got. I mean, some of them are doing 5 and 6 years for walking inside the lobby of the Capitol building. Now, they shouldn't have done it. I don't admire anybody that was a part of that January 6th thing. I don't. But for God's sakes, can we? This is just as a banana republic would have done 40 years ago. Once you get in power, you round up your opponents and throw them in jail. That's what's happening here.
Well, but I really think that is, and I don't think it's an overstatement. I think that is exactly what the Biden administration would do if they had any license at all. If they will take any excuse. I think they are really trying desperately to suppress any conservative or any opposition. It doesn't matter whether it's conservative or not. Any opposition at all to their policies, because they rally the media and others against whoever that person or organization is. And they cripple them, and they have the ability to do that. And I think that is as close to tyrannical, authoritative rule as right now our system will allow. But they're going to come after you if you disagree with them. And it doesn't matter who you are. Look at what's going on Spotify. I mean, that whole dust up over
he was voted out of office, or he lost the primary, Republican primary.
Right.
But I have grown to like Randy Feenstra. I think he's a real sharp guy. He's as accessible as Steve King was. Steve was Congressman King was always ready to come on the radio at any time. Liberals don't like talk radio, as you know. They won't appear on it. Senator Harkin, Tom Harkin, when he was in the Senate, would never appear on WHO radio, which leans to the right, of course, but they're not crazy radicals. I mean, but Harkin saw no upside to his appearance on WHO radio in Des Moines, and certainly not on this show or many others. Maybe when you were on the air there in Sioux City, I don't know. But what do you think of Feenstra? I know your loyalties are with King, but just
I have mixed feelings. I would say that I have a lot of doubts, and I'll be upfront. I'm just going to say it. I have a lot of doubts about him. The thing I am concerned about is the fact that I think that I don't think that he is a person who will find conservative hills to die on in Congress. I think he will go along to get along. I think that's he has been he got his seat in the House with the support of some incredibly deep pockets from special interest, and I think he is. I will say this. I think he's a vote for amnesty, and I think he is not a dependable vote for the 4th District of Iowa when it comes to supporting conservative causes in the House. I don't think he's going to be a member of the Freedom Caucus. I don't think he's going to distinguish himself. I think that he is going to be a person who settles in, is going to have a lot of money in his campaign coffers, and he will then bend to those special interests when the chips are down. I just don't think he's a person of significant principle to support the conservative cause.
Well, before I ever met Randy Feenstra, I used to watch him on YouTube, and there's one thing he's pretty passionate about as an accountant, and that's a balanced budget. Now, that's at the core of most Republican Party philosophy, is to keep spending down and not to waste money. But Feenstra was fighting that battle while he was still in the Senate. I have heard, and I don't know who his donors were. I should have looked it up by now. But I have heard that there were those who are concerned, like myself, about mass unchecked illegal immigration driving down the cost of labor, because labor people are my people. And when you talk about flooding the area with cheap labor or slave labor, that gets my attention. I've asked Congressman Feenstra about that several times, and he has said that he would uphold our nation's immigration laws and push for that to happen. But I want to ask you, and I'm going to play devil's advocate with you because that's what I do. How effective, 2 questions. How effective really was Steve King? And secondly, how effective has the Freedom Council been?
Well, I think your point is excellent. I think that what happens if you are a person who is passionate, and if you're a little bit like that Mississippi snapping turtle that once you bite onto something, you won't let go until it thunders, then I think sometimes you alienate people, and if you alienate the wrong people in Washington, D.C. as a member of Congress, then you are going to be marginalized. And I think whether we like it or not, whether we do anything else, I think what you have to do is you have to take a look at the concerted effort to marginalize Steve King. And that certainly took place. Was Steve King to blame for that? If you look at the actions that were taken against him, or you read his book, it's pretty clear that there was a severe conflict between Steve King and Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah,
that is very clear.
there was a big conflict when John Bonnier was in that chair too. Actually,
well,
when Bonnier,
and take a look at even if you take a look at all of the leadership of the Republican Party, most of them are moderates. They're not hard-nosed conservatives. So Kevin McCarthy certainly isn't. John Boehner wasn't. The kid from Wisconsin wasn't. I think that if you look at how you rise in leadership in the Republican Party, you cannot be an arch conservative. You can't be a Louis Gohmert. You can't be people like that, because you're just simply not going to get those leadership positions. And now, I don't know why that is, but that's the case. Now, how successful was the Freedom Caucus? Not very, because the numbers aren't high enough. You have to take a look at if you're going to be a block inside your caucus, then you have to be able to have some effect. And if you can't affect the legislation that is coming out of your side, then you really don't have any effect. And so I think that your point is legitimate, and I think that I will give you an honest answer. I just don't think they were. Now, was Steve effective? Steve's method of operation was that he offered amendments to legislation, which is probably the best way to go. And because the main legislation is written by lobbyists, not written by legislators, and I think that would be effective in how he operated. But I will say this: once you get turned, and once you get crossways with the leadership, you're going to have a hard time.
yeah, that's right, and that's the way the world works. I mean, that's exactly how things happen. And Congressman King and others charged right forward anyway. There is a time in politics, and I hate this about politics, but this is the way it is, that you move, in our country encourages this sort of thing. Our very system of government encourages incrementalism. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
We move a little slowly. The Freedom Caucus wants change right now. They have that in common with other activist groups, and I kind of consider the Freedom Caucus an activist group. They want change now, and they're loud about it. Now, that will always run into a problem with those who are incrementalists or those who describe themselves as pragmatic. While we understand, we may sympathize with the issues the Freedom Caucus has, we still can't get this done through our system because the Democrats are in opposition, strong opposition. And some in the Republican Party are also in strong opposition. And I guess it seemed the Freedom Caucus couldn't accept that at some points, because they are an activist group. Would you agree with me the Freedom Caucus were an activist group? I guess maybe I should.
Yes, I would. I don't know that I would equate them with the gang on the Democrat side.
No.
But I would say that that the gang wants change now, and I think that the Freedom Caucus they're very adamant about the conservative principles. Now, the thing that I take into question of anybody in the Congress of the United States, and I've dealt with a lot of them, is the notion that how many of them are for a limited government, and in most of them you can tell by how they vote on budget issues whether or not they are for limited government, because the more funding that they put in government gives me an indication that Republicans and Democrats are quite frankly comfortable with large government. And there's no one, you find no one fighting to reduce the size of government. No one. And that is a Republican issue. That is a conservative issue. And if you don't have people in your own party that are supposed to be out there, and in order to have limited government, you have to have fiscal responsibility. And the two go together. And if you don't have fiscal responsibility, you can't possibly have limited government. And if you want limited government, you're going to have to reduce the size of government or the reach of government. And I don't see anybody advocating for that on either side.
I don't either, frankly. This is AM 1400 KVFT, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. The media is complicit. I mean, it's sad. Yes. It's sad that we cannot trust the media to be objective at all. We're all human beings. We're all going to show our biases on occasion, but there's no attempt, especially in the print media anymore, to contain or control their bias at all. And I would point to the example of Stacey Abrams, an African-American woman who wants to be the governor of Georgia. She was defeated by current Governor Brian Kemp a couple of years ago, and she still hasn't conceded, by the way. She's a class act. Yep. So recently a picture was taken of Stacey Abrams in an elementary school classroom. All the children are duly masked, but there's this woman sitting right in the middle of the kids with a big smile on her face who isn't masked. That's Stacey Abrams. Right. Now, I'm bringing this up only because the Washington Post immediately, when there was criticism of Stacey Abrams, came to her defense. They described or they reported immediately Abrams' response, the Abrams campaign's response to this picture, as just silly. It's just silly that these silly Republicans would call her a hypocrite for insisting on masking while not doing so yourself. How many times have we seen this? How many times have we seen this sort of hypocrisy? But large newspapers like the Washington Post and the New York Times and many other papers follow their leads, refuse to make a deal out of it or refuse even to note it. And if they do, it's only to highlight Republican hypocrisy or meanness or silliness. Or, they're continuing the narrative that this astounds me. The viciousness of these prosecutions in relation to January 6th people shows a sadistic streak. It really does. Nancy Pelosi is all over this thing because she's a nasty little woman, I'll tell you. She's a mean one. And but they will not they refuse to stop describing the Republicans as a bunch of meanies. It's ridiculous.
Well, I just, to me, I think we have to deal with a lot of different things. There's not much we can do about the media. There's not much we can do about the left. There's not much we can really do about anything other than to stick to our guns and do the things that we can do. And I hear people complain about Nancy Pelosi, and I said, if you really feel that strongly, move to San Francisco and vote her out of office. Well, no. Well, then stop complaining about her because you can't do anything about it. So don't waste your energy on that. Let's waste our energy on things we can do.
We do have a responsibility to get in the fight because that's what this way it's a fight for truth, the way I see it.
Well,
and the Republicans don't own
Let's circle back to our friend Randy Feenstra.
All right.
So the issue there is that, do you see a town hall schedule? Do you get that town hall schedule from him?
No, I don't.
I haven't seen one. Do you have any idea if he's going to make an effort to visit the 39 counties now that are 38 with,
I believe
whatever
he
that
was,
are in 4th District now?
Randy Feenstra was here not last weekend, but the weekend before at our Eggs and Issues Forum at Central Community College. First place I saw you, as a matter of fact, was on that stage.
Right.
So Yeah, I would think that Feenstra, and I believe Feenstra said at the time that he was going to try to get to all the counties. Sam, I wish I could talk with you longer, but we're out of time. Sam Clovis has
Okay.
been our guest. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Why just listen to the Divine Intervention Show when you can watch it? The Blue Ribbon Pelham Water Studio is now streaming video. Check out the show Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on our Facebook video stream. And this program brought to you by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481 or online at www.fdwater.com. The news is coming up.
Hi, I'm Randy Feenstra. It's hard to believe that my team and I have been your voice in Congress for over a year. Despite all the challenges we faced, we continue to deliver on priorities that we all care about. I voted to protect the unborn,
congressional folks in DC. So,
Right.
and I do that for, I do it for all the colleges because we're all in this together.
Yeah, sure. All the community college. How many community do you? Here's a brain teaser for you. You know how many community colleges are in the state of Iowa?
We have 15 community colleges spread across the state by region. So we have, Iowa Central, Iowa Lakes in our region,
Sure.
Iowa Valley, and Marshalltown, and go on from there.
Are schools like Hawkeye Tech or anything? Are those considered junior colleges
Yes.
or not?
Yeah, Hawkeye Tech's over in Waterloo, very good school.
Okay, all right. And Iowa Central is doing well this enrollment season.
Yeah, we were up last year almost 10% last fall, and it looks like we're going to be up another 7% this spring. The final numbers are not in yet, but we're doing real well, and we're excited about the new leadership with Dr. Ulrich, and we hope to have him on again next week or so. I think we got him booked.
Yeah, I got your text that Dr. Ulrich and you will be in studio, so that'll be pretty cool. I think that's next.
What I'll do is I'll introduce him, and then you guys can really chat and learn more about his vision for now and long term.
Sure, I think I've got that down for next month, Jim. But if you,
it is.
Okay, next month. Yeah, it'll be in March. Yeah, I just by coincidence I saw Dr. Ulrich out at JMARS. What is it? Last weekend or the weekend before? But anyway, yeah, it'll be great to have him here. What's going on as far as the legislative session is
it's my
concerned?
understanding that this week they're going to vote out of committee the draft of, or the bill for tax reform to restart that discussion, and it'll end up in probably a conference committee between the House and Senate, and the governor will play a key role. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to see some significant tax reform, and I think long term it'll help Iowa. And our position at Iowa Central is to make sure that we think the cuts are very important. It'll help retain people in Iowa, especially our graduates. We've also got to maintain our high priorities of funding for workforce training and what have you. So we're going to keep that debate going with Tim Kreinbrink and Ann Meyer and Mike Sexton and the others in Des Moines.
All right, I always have Tim and Ann on Friday at 3:00. And I never really talked to them about Iowa Central because you've handled that pretty well. But
Sure.
I know Tim and Ann.
They've been very strong advocates for us, and so this year they're going to be a particularly, hopefully we'll be able to get them to carry some weight for us with our budget. And you may want to ask them about that on Friday. But they've indicated they're going to support us in a strong way.
Well, Tim, of course, and we're lucky to have Senator Kreinbrink at the position he's at now. He's chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. That's a very powerful chair.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
And I know Tim with his background as an educator. He was a school teacher before he was a farm manager. That he wants to support education. He wants to do it smartly and correctly, of course, but he wants to support education.
Right, and I believe they're passing out either today or tomorrow again for full floor debate by Friday, the K-12 state aid. So they have to have that done by law by February 11th. So I think their goal is to get it done either Thursday or Friday this week.
All right. Well, that's good news. There's a little bit of a controversy, and you and I may have talked about it before. I'm sure that we have about books that some consider obscene in school public libraries. Now, I know Iowa Central has a library, but frankly, I don't see the problem with having all kinds of books in a junior college library. By the time kids are out of high school, young people are out of high school, they can handle different concepts and different attitudes. And I would have no objection to that sort of thing. So the controversy.
Well, I don't think, actually, it's ironic with higher education now, the libraries are becoming much more digital and online.
Yeah.
So we don't have as many books in the shelves in our library, but it's having access with our library cards through the college for these students to access a ton of information for very low cost. So I've never heard a complaint about any of the material anywhere in any of our programs. So I think the professors watch that pretty well.
Well, again, certainly young adults can handle themes like homosexuality and all these other things that are happening in our world today. I hope they're inquisitive about these things, again, to make their minds up for themselves about which direction they'd like to have their lives take or how they'd like to vote in the future on any number of issues. That's what education is about, but I think it's totally inappropriate for elementary students and high school children, frankly. Anyway, I know the governor and Senator Chapman, who's running, I guess, is going to be. Have you heard this for sure? Senator Chapman's running for the nomination to take the 3rd congressional seat. Now, held by Cindy Axne. Is he nailed down that nomination, or where are we at?
No, I have not heard that at all. I know that Senator Zach Nunn from the Des Moines area is in the primary.
I beg your pardon, Zach Nunn, not Jake. Jake.
No,
I beg your pardon.
Zach Nunn. Yeah, and he had announced a while back, and I think there was a primary in that race, so they're going to give themselves a good fight in the primary, and then it'll be a tough fight with Cindy Axne. She's done a pretty good job, I think, generally, but she's got a big new district too with that reapportionment, so I think that'll be a race to watch.
Well, we've talked about this several times before. The problem with a congressional third is that's where Polk County is. So the first time Cindy Axne ran against David Young, who I met several times and personally liked David Young, but he lost to Cindy Axne. And he won 16 of the 17 counties, I believe, in the congressional third. Of course,
he did.
But that last county was Polk County, with all the government workers and a very big Democratic stronghold. So that's what beat him.
Well, you're right, and frankly, in the last gubernatorial race, Governor Reynolds was behind till the very last minute when Northwest Iowa votes were counted, and Northwest Iowa carried the governor into her governorship. So yeah, Des Moines got a real strong Democratic base, and it'll be interesting to see how those new districts pan out.
Yeah, Steve King, when he was congressman, rallied the forces over there for Governor Reynolds, and I believe I read his book, Walking Through the Fire. He gave me a copy of this book, and I believe there's some information in there around that race, Governor Reynolds' race, because she had a tough opponent.
Fred Hubble. Yeah,
Hubble. If you say Hubble in Des Moines, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Absolutely,
county.
Yeah,
very famous.
Put a lot of his own money in that race too. So
yeah,
it was a tough race for the governor, but she prevailed, and it looks like her poll numbers look pretty well for next reelection. So
I think so. And her supposed Democratic opponent, Deidre Gier, I believe her name is, she doesn't have near the money to run that Governor Reynolds does. No. And I don't find fault with anything that Governor Reynolds has done, really.
No, she just did a wonderful job during the pandemic. She held strong and firm and didn't overreact on one way or the other. And she tried to make the right decisions to keep Iowa open and still provide safety. And I think she did a pretty good job, and I think the record will show that.
Oh, I think so as well. I think she was a steady hand at the wheel, so to speak. And
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And she definitely wanted to keep businesses open. There was a lot of pressure to close businesses. Some did. I mean, we closed restaurants for a while, and I only hope that those restaurants are backing up and running at full speed again. Certainly, there's plenty of good restaurants here in Fort Dodge, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to go out to eat, there's all kinds.
Oh, there's multiple.
All kinds. I do miss the Sandstone, though, Jim.
Oh, I do, too. In fact, I was just talking to someone about that the other day because they were talking about Palmer, Iowa. Palmer House is a bar restaurant.
Palmer House, yeah, I remember that place, yeah.
Yep, and that place was, great food, cost, very low cost, and it was just an icon in the area. And I joked with them. I said, "Is that named after the Palmer House from Chicago? Because that's a real fancy restaurant." And it really is named after Palmer, Iowa. So
yeah,
but no, there's a lot of look down there, and all over the region. There's really good restaurants. Down just across the area, Sac City. Some people have started reopen that Sac City Steakhouse, and they've just done a wonderful job, I guess.
Oh, well, I remember the steakhouse over there that was built in an old home, an old mansion from one of the founders of Sac City, but that was many years ago. I don't know if we're talking about the same place or not, but.
Well, there's a lot of good ones around, and hopefully people are, supporting them. I know Amigos was really strong doing deliveries during
they were
COVID. I think several other restaurants were, so we got to thank them.
Yes, we do, and I got a couple of pizzas delivered by Amigos, of course, and so Mark and his group down there at Amigos stepped up to help a lot of folks who. I had COVID at the time, so if anybody brought me food, I was really grateful.
I bet. Yeah, I need to see some food.
Yeah, that's right.
And Mark did a good job too with the supervisors of helping get through all that pandemic. And now he's on the Racing Gaming Commission. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, I did know that.
He might be a neat guy to have on just to kind of explain what he's learned so far and what's all involved. But it's a very important commission.
Well, I tell you, that Campbell boy, he turned out all right. Who knew? I mean,
yeah. His dad Ron was a great guy too.
Oh, he was.
Dad was a really good mentor for him, and Ron was a character.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
I really liked him.
Yeah, Jim Kerson's our guest. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Can you tell us anything about the budget in general down in Des Moines?
Well, I think it's going to be, they're going to do the budget or the tax cuts first. I think the Senate and the House leaders have given targets to each of their budget, what they call subcommittees. So like for education and higher education, their subcommittee chairs have a target. And then within that, their committee has to decide how much they're going to allocate to the Board of Regents, private colleges, community colleges. And that's what we're working hard on, is to make sure we get our fair share, because we are the worker bees on the ground training these workers.
Yeah.
And they can get immediate results to our economy. And there's literally about 100,000 new jobs that are open right now in Iowa they can't fill. So we're the quickest way to get these people skilled and get out. And we're going to continue to tell that story in the legislature.
All right, Jim, I know you got to take off a little bit early today.
Yeah.
Do we have any closing thoughts?
No, just not. I think the Republicans had their convention last night. I couldn't go because I had a commitment, but I think they had about 50 or 60 people show, and they had a good discussion. And then tonight we have Iowa Central board meeting starting here at about 5 o'clock, so I do have to run.
Right, yeah. I missed that too. I was sick. Just one of those things.
But yeah.
I always enjoy going, but I missed it this time. So thank you, Jim.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Bye-bye. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
I'm Connell McShane. This is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks finishing higher with the Dow notching its best session in over a week as investors weighed a new batch of earnings reports. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note rose to its highest level since before the pandemic began. Tech and financials gained while energy stocks lagged. The Dow rising 372 points, the Nasdaq up 179, S&P 500 up 38. And shares of Chipotle are gaining in the extended session after the burrito chain topped Wall Street estimates for its fourth quarter earnings and met its expectations for revenue. Chipotle is facing higher costs for labor and ingredients, but price hikes helped the company offset the impact. However, Chipotle did warn that the Omicron variant will hit next quarter's sales. And ride-sharing company Lyft posted better than expected fourth quarter results, reporting both improving ride volumes and increased revenue per passenger. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Inflation just broke a nearly 40-year record thanks to Biden's out-of-control spending.